everybody. I'm Volker Friedrich, CEO and founder of GBP International, a project management and strategy consulting company based in Kuala Lumpur. We work with European and Asian customers for the last 20 over years. And I have the pleasure today to discuss with Natasha Zulkifli, a good friend and business associate of ours, about Europe and Asian affairs. And Natasha is a very unique person, the first lady in our series of talk. Actually, I'm completely wrong. We were talking to Tantri Rafida, so second lady. And Natasha, I would like to ask you to introduce yourself a little bit. You have been working in various spaces, so to say, of the European-Asian relations, public, pro bono, corporate. So please give our viewers a short introduction of yourself.
Hi, Volker. Good morning. It's lovely to be here. I've worked in the public transport rail space for about 9 years. And before that, I worked in a not-for-profit that explored Malaysia's relationship with the European Union. I have a big passion for the rail, public transport industry, cities of the future. And I also love the rail industry so much that I created a not-for-profit called Women in Rail Malaysia, which now has more than 700 members. And it's aimed at getting more young ladies to consider a career in the rail space, as well as providing support to women currently working in this industry.
Excellent. And obviously, we are at the end of a very special year, and we cannot avoid to talk briefly, at least, about the COVID situation and how it affected, the whole society from A to Z, and there is no exception. So how is your industry particularly affected by the COVID pandemic?
So right now I work for a construction company, and we're building a 200-kilometer rail line in the southern part of Malaysia. So we were quite badly affected in March for about 6 weeks, full lockdown when Malaysia shut everything down. There was some staggered reopening based on special permission given by the government, and we slowly reopened. But till today, what we're trying really hard to do at work is along that 200-kilometer line, we've created a bubble which allows the workers and the staff to be contained within that bubble so that there is no cross-infection or contamination for people outside coming in. Malaysia in the last, I would say, 6 weeks has been badly hit by factory workers, by workers living in close quarters, infecting one another. We have 5,000 workers at site at the moment, and we haven't had any cases so far, which is nothing short of a miracle, touch wood, that we will continue to have such good fortune. But in Malaysia right now, the cases are going up. People are still very careful. The government has done some recent surveys and studies. More than 95% of people are wearing masks. They are sanitizing their hands. They are maintaining social distancing when they go out. But I think the economy takes precedence, and people just want to get back to work. There is too much fatigue at the moment, and people are just tired of this whole COVID thing. They just want to get their lives back on track.
Yeah. Have you started vaccination also in Malaysia? We have just started here yesterday in Germany with the first rounds. So, and that, of course, that's a silver lining everywhere.
Yeah, so I think we start in February. They are expecting, they have ordered enough vaccines to vaccinate, I think, 80% of the population. They have multiple sources coming from all over the world, and they pledge that it will be free. So let's see.
Okay, so everybody keeps fingers crossed, and we all hope for a less corona-impacted year 2021. So let me go back to the railway industry. And traditionally, railway industry and mobility is, I would say, one of the fortes, especially of the German industry. We have the Germans claim they have invented the car, and Mercedes is a brand name. So is Siemens in the railway industry. To what extent in your, I guess it's a kind of a turnkey package project where you are building a railway system. Do you have any kind of European contribution, or is this a standalone Asian project where you are not sourcing or cooperating with German or European engineers or suppliers?
Are you talking about the project I'm doing, or
Yes.
just generally? Oh, the project I'm doing.
Oh, yes.
We don't have German suppliers.
Mm-hmm.
We do have European content.
Mm.
We have got, well, whether you want to call them Japanese or European, Hitachi and Saldo.
Mm-hmm.
They are working with us on this project.
Mm-hmm.
But German per se, no. So actually our job is quite, the only role of, there's civil infrastructure role, and then there's electrification and power. So that is the opportunity for foreign technology to come in, and that is what we are utilizing actually.
And there you cooperate with Japanese, Korean partners.
Hitachi and Saldo is a merge between Europe and Japan.
Yeah. So there is a kind of a European element at least. Yeah.
Yes.
Because this is talking more general, this is one of the concerns we see in Europe, that many industries, and the railway transportation is one of them, it's going to be dominated by Chinese contractors and suppliers. And everybody who studies Malaysia a little bit knows that there is a lot of involvement of Chinese companies investing in the railways. Do you see that potential dominance as well in your industry from Chinese large corporations?
But you see, the Chinese have scale. They have scale, and that's why they are stronger. And actually, I had a meeting last week in the office with a French supplier who wanted to know a bit about the high-speed rail project between Kuala Lumpur and Singapore, and whether the company I work for was going to be involved, and so forth. And I said to this representative, I said, look, when the high-speed rail project comes online, the Japanese and the Chinese will submit a sovereign bid. They will create a consortium of sorts that will put everything together, a whole package. And I said that it was incumbent upon the Europeans to get their act together, to come forward and put forward a sovereign bid. Because if you don't do that, if you come in as Siemens, if you come in as Thales, if you come in as Alstom, it will not work, because you're just a small component. What other countries are doing, and what China has been doing for so long, is just creating that whole big package. And it is attractive to countries like ours when this comes in, because it's easier. Having said that, once the tenders are called, and then you see the structure where the project owner is trying to roll out, then it is easier to figure out. But from a German perspective, yes, of course, the Germans are world dominant. They are fantastic. Their technology is unbeatable. But there are also very good technologies elsewhere as well. And that's when it has to be competitively priced and dynamic in terms of how they want to package themselves.
Yeah, I'm sorry to say, and I'm German, and we are kind of a preacher, inverted commas, that some of the German companies, they are really a little bit sleepy, the last couple of years. And some of them, they have really missed the bus, so to say, or missed the train. And they don't accept that competitiveness has been increasing a lot. And like you say, we also see that in other industries. Asian contractors, Asian technologies, they have in some cases overtaken European technologies at a cheaper price. And so there has to be a kind of a wake-up call. And the European companies, they cannot survive in their own small European bubble. They have to compete globally, and they have to face a challenge of Asian competitors. That is our view. I don't know if you share that. Yeah.
Oh, I completely share it. I thoroughly agree with you. The tricky part now is whether the Europeans, when you say they've missed the bus, whether they are going to be able to ever get back on the bus. Because if they allow the other giants, non-European giants, to step up, we are an industry which has a very long life cycle. The obsolescence period is 8 to 10 years, if not longer, for some parts. So if you've missed the bus for a project, you can't get your foot in the door for the next 5, 10, 15 years.
There's no other bus coming.
So exactly. So I see Germany as an outsider looking in. I see Germany as the engine of growth for the EU. They are similar to Indonesia within ASEAN. Their domestic market is so big, so strong, the appetite is there that they do not feel the need or the urgency to look beyond their shores. So when you have that sort of market strength, you are not as hungry as other people are. But I will tell you that there are other people who are hungry or hungrier than the Germans. And this is something that I think has to be driven, whether it's driven by your government or whether it's driven by your captains of industry, but complacency has definitely set in. And you are right about the cost, because in the work that I've done in the rail space in the last 9 years or so, whenever we are looking at a bid, it need not be a hardware bid for rail. We're just looking at consulting, to provide us with some consulting work, to provide us with advisory work. Whenever we receive a quote in euros or in pounds, that cost, immediately the multiplier effect kicks in. And when you are paying your staff your home rate with your multiplier effect plus the exchange rate, it is very expensive for us. And even though we may want to utilize the Europeans for their skills and expertise, sometimes we just can't afford it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that message applies to all kinds of business, really, whether you hire management consultants or engineers or technicians, they got to be paid in euros or dollars. And as long as they have an alternative, like you just say, they don't have to come to Asia, But on the other hand, Asia is not waiting for them anymore, and they are developing alternatives, which is good for Asia, and I like it. But what I don't like is that we are building kind of two blocks, and like you say, Germany, they can survive on their home market, China can survive on their home market, so does Indonesia. But what we see also in the broader sense is like a de-globalization again. We all have been clapping our hands and shouting bravo, everybody working together in the 90s and in the early 2000s. And now it's like make America great again philosophy, everybody's looking after their own interest, which I believe is counterproductive. And we have to develop platforms and projects where we are cooperating together and where we are learning from each other, regardless of the cost, And I have so many project cases where our German customers are learning from the Asian client or partner and vice versa. And that is the way to go, in my view.
Yeah, I would say so. I think also it's about, I think Trump could learn one thing, that we should all be mindful of, his humility. And to recognize that your dominance today will not necessarily be your dominance when your children are in the workspace in 20 years' time.
That's true. And the world is going to change very, very fast. I mean, we have seen changes in the speed of light in the last year, multiplied by the COVID impact. And that brings me to another topic, I think, where you are a very knowledgeable and experienced discussion partner, is the importance of culture between Europe and Asia. And you are working in a Chinese-owned company, if I may say so. Yes. Built and grown in Malaysia, but with a lot of Chinese influence and shareholders. And you have been interacting in Europe a lot. You have been usually flying 3 or 4 times a year, if not more, to Europe. What is your take on where are the biggest differences in the let's say, the humiliation or the respect for different cultures? Do you see differences how Europeans treat Asian cultures compared to the other way?
That's a really interesting question. I think that, just to provide some perspective to your viewers, before I joined this current company that I'm at, Volker is correct. I am working for a Chinese-owned, Malaysian Chinese-owned company called YTL. And they are listed in Kuala Lumpur and on the Tokyo Stock Exchange. But before this, I worked for 3 years with Prasarana, which is the rail and bus operator owned by the government of Malaysia. And when I was with Prasarana, I was head of international relations. So we did a lot of work with the Europeans, with the Japanese, with the Chinese. We tried to create strengthened commitment and linkages with Southeast Asian countries as well. So we had European suitors coming to Prasarana to talk to us about collaborations. We had memorandums of understanding for knowledge exchange and so forth between us and Transport for London. We were, the Spanish came a lot to visit, the French came, the British were very active, but Germans didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't. You know, whether they didn't feel the need to. Siemens is quite strong in Malaysia, but they have a very strong local presence at the Malaysian office. But you see other companies, you know, other European companies who did come a-calling, and we had a lot of foreign visitors, so many foreign visitors. And in terms of the culture difference, I'll tell you, I feel that the Europeans are cautiously friendly, if that's the right word to say, interested to do business, willing to explore opportunities, wanting to see how they can grow their businesses. And I dealt with big multinational companies as well as small, medium enterprises as well. Everyone wants to see how they can have their foot in the door, and they are interested to explore these opportunities. But there were no Germans.
Okay. I will shout out loud in Germany and take this invitation from you to come more often to Asia and Malaysia. Yeah.
But you know, Volker, even comparatively, okay, the ambassadors, the European ambassadors, the Japanese, Chinese ambassadors would come a-calling to Prasarana, but we never met the German ambassador. The UK, French, several, not many, several, but no Germans.
Yeah.
Maybe the German...
Germany, just for your information, Germany just got a new ambassador, and I will extend the invitation to him. Yeah?
Oh, okay.
Make up for his predecessors' lack of visits, you know. Okay, maybe because you have such a vast experience, Natasha, I'd like to touch on a subject which may be interesting for you, especially as a woman. You know, because we have a huge discussion here about the gender equality and quota, you know, where they say, let's say at least all the listed companies, they have to have at least 30–40% women board participation. And you're in a very unique role. You know, we are living in a Muslim country in Malaysia. And how do you see that gender discussion in your sphere of activities? Is this a topic? You have mentioned the Women in Rail project, which I admire greatly, and you get a lot of traction and compliments for that. What's your take on that? How do you feel as a woman, as a mother, as a wife to your husband in that gender sphere?
I don't see it being a big deal. I think I'm Muslim, living in a Muslim-dominated country, no big deal. I'm not wearing covered, you know. There's no barrier to work in terms of that. I think that it's a very open, liberal-ish society that we live in, although there are some political situations which politicians try to leverage on, which I don't want to go into. You talked a bit about the quotas for public listed companies. Yes, that is a target. It is not a legislation. I sit on the board of a public listed company, a plantation agriculture company, simply because the government would like to see more women on boards. I personally do not subscribe to that 30% quota. I believe that it is important to be there because you are good, not because you are a woman. However, there are instances where companies have got to open up themselves. It is so typical to find the middle-aged white male in Europe, you know, and even in Malaysia, you have middle-aged Malaysian men on boards and in companies, leading companies, but there are more and more women trying to come up. But I think women let themselves down when they do not work hard to educate themselves, to expose themselves, to provide value wherever they may sit. Even if they're business owners or even they sit on independent directors who sit on boards. I was speaking to the chairman of a bank, and he said he has hired more, or they have put more women on their board, but he's irritated because the lady who sits on his board sits there and doesn't say anything in meetings. And all she does is she takes back her meeting allowance and all her other allowances, and that's it.
Well, that's so counterproductive for the case.
It is. It's counterproductive for everyone. You do no one a favor. Having said that, being female, I do realize that there are so many women who are unlike me, but who feel intimidated, who feel overwhelmed, who feel that they're not good enough. You know, this is year end. It's so interesting, you know, going through my team's KPI rating. We have a formal way of rating ourselves through our HR. And in the last month, I ran a 360-degree peer review amongst the people in my team. And I said to them, I said, we've had a really strange 2020.
Oh, sorry, how many people you have in your team?
About 18.
Okay.
So I said, I want to go into 2021 strong. I want to be able for everyone to know how they've fared this year, and I want their peers to evaluate them, to evaluate everyone else. And they evaluated me too. My condition was it had to be anonymous, so that no one knows who is saying what, and you can make your comments safely. And truly, the comments that came back was so interesting. And it is so prevalent, Volker. It is so telling that women always rate themselves lower and men are rating themselves higher, and they think they're so fantastic. And I was reading some articles today. I have someone in my staff who rated himself like 96 out of 100. I'm like, good God, boy, you are not 96 out of 100. But he feels that. He feels that he is excellent at his job. And this goes back to the confidence factor that women traditionally do not have. And I say that, hand on my heart, it is not a Malaysian thing. It is a global thing.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's a pity because a man, I just don't want to get into it, but we're just built differently.
Well,
okay.
Let's agree that there is still a mountain to climb, you know, and you are definitely one of the leading mountaineers, so to say, in that respect. And I support you with all my thinking and the little means we have. So that's very nice. Another subject which I feel is interested to our viewers is the ASEAN community. And you have been working there intensely in various functions. What is let's say, the state of the art today? I mean, ASEAN is the community of 10 biggest nations in Southeast Asia. And to be honest, in Europe, we read and see very, very little about it. And that is not because of COVID. That has been the case before. I feel ASEAN is really not up to the task, you know, in general. And you have a much more stronger potential than that is really put on the table at the moment. How do you view ASEAN as we speak today?
So I used to sit in the ASEAN Business Advisory Council for 3 years. I represented Malaysia in the Business Women's Working Group. And this was from 2015 to 2018. And ASEAN has, so let's just rewind a bit. I've always been fascinated with the European Union. So I did my law degree at the London School of Economics in the UK. And I deliberately did a special focus on European Union law. I was fascinated with how the EU was evolving and growing. And I was so delighted that I had a chance to play some small role in the ASEAN space. So the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, you're right, 10 countries from Southeast Asia all clumped together, trying to forge their way diplomatically, economically, not politically, a few differences compared to the EU. The problem that ASEAN has faced is probably similar to the EU. Too many types of languages, sizing, levels of industrialization, Singapore way out front, Myanmar and Laos, Cambodia in the back,
right?
And everyone else in between. The problem that ASEAN has faced is it's nation first. It is not a grouping first. Whether that is a public communications nightmare or whether it is for self-preservation, I think it is really based on the crux of it is that there's the policy of non-interference within the ASEAN member states. The EU is somewhat different. Whether the EU actually is a success, we'll probably only know in about 50 years. I mean, with Brexit and all that, who knows? But my point here is that ASEAN, you are right. They like to talk about how ASEAN as a community has X 100 million population and it's free trade, open borders, etc., etc. Come and invest in ASEAN. But there's no proper planning and strategy as to how they want to do that. Yeah. And until they do that, they will never really succeed at what they want to do.
Yeah. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, we had the launch or the signing ceremony of this regional cooperation agreement, RCEP. And ASEAN is one group, yeah, among China, New Zealand, Japan, etc. How do you see this RCEP agreement in a broader context with ASEAN Europe? Because we see a lot of, let's say, not conflict, but misunderstanding in the trade deals which are tried in the EU between ASEAN EU. There are palm oil issues and other issues, and then they sign bilateral agreements with Vietnam and Singapore, and the other nations in ASEAN are left out. And then suddenly we have this RCEP. So it's difficult to follow, to be honest, you know, from what is going on there.
Yeah, you're right. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
RCEP has been, well, it's trying to create that that economic grouping. It potentially has so much opportunities for growth. I think generally ASEAN countries are open for business. They're open for business, for investment. They would welcome. I was so impressed when I read in the paper the other day how Jokowi, the president of Indonesia, had picked up the phone and called Elon Musk. And you can't do a trade mission anymore. You know, you can't visit different countries and say, hey guys, come and invest in my country. These are the benefits we can offer you. But you have to be creative. And the old way of doing business will never work. So it really is, you may be a grouping, but you're still a competitor with your neighbor. That's inevitable. And politically, Malaysia isn't in the strongest of positions at the moment. But if it were, I really wish for things to be better.
Yeah, well, that's very interesting thought. And we are coming to the end of our discussion. So in a closing remark, we are at the New Year's Eve, a couple of days to go. What is your personal outlook for the next year? What is your ambition? What is your target? And what's your message to your friends in Europe, really?
God, I would love to come back to Europe soon.
You are more than welcome, you know.
Yes, apart from that message, what do I want for 2021? I would like to be reunited with family. I have a mother who has been stuck in New Zealand for a year because of COVID. I have got a sister in Sydney and Auckland, and it would be lovely to spend a few days together as a family again.
Right.
I would love good health for all. I don't see us going back to normal. Everyone says, oh, I want things to go back to normal. I don't think it will. And if we do go back to normal, I think we're losing a huge opportunity to be better. And I do know for me personally, I want to go back. I want to go into 2021 healthy, physically strong. I want to be able to know that I spent the best part of 2020 was spending it at home with family, being able to spend more time with my teenage kids, learning to cook with them, to have meals together, to calm everything down, to slow down. And I'm so grateful for that. I do not wish to go back to the rushed life that my husband and I used to have, hardly seeing each other, travel here, travel there, rush here, rush there. I don't miss that. I do miss the traveling and enjoying and seeing friends from all over the world. Okay, but on a professional front, I am setting up Women in Rail Connect. And have I told you about this, Volker?
No, go ahead. We still have time.
Okay, so this is really fun. So I realized now with everything being online, this was the best time to set up an international platform through a website and social media channels to create Women in Rail Connect. It is a no-risk, low-cost opportunity for women all over the world to join this Women in Rail fraternity for free. So I spoke to the Women in Rail UK founder, Adeline, and I said, look, I want to set up a Women in Rail Connect website. We will leverage on each other's activities because now everyone does webinars, talks, workshops, all online. And we will create a calendar of events for the whole year. And then we will call our friends from all over the world. And I have many, many friends from across Asia Pacific who are interested to set up something like this, but who lack the courage, maybe the backing at work, or even the funds to do so. But Women in Rail Connect online will connect everyone together. You will have a membership database for everyone from different countries all over the world. We welcome everyone.
Okay.
And I really want to see that happen. And so when there is scale, when there is volume, when Singapore or Japan has maybe 50 members, and then they'll say, hey, let's get together and let's officially set ourselves up and create that Women in Rail Connect. So Women in Rail Connect will be that incubation thing to create Women in Rail International with all the different countries. That is my vision for 2021 and for the next 5 years.
That's a cool project. And I think Women in Rail is very privileged to have you as a driver, you know, as somebody pushing the agenda forward. And Natasha, let me thank you very much again for this very interesting, enlightening interview and discussion with you. And I hope we can continue that over a good dinner or lunch in the next couple of months. We have to be realistic. I don't see myself traveling to Asia in the first quarter, to be honest. But hopefully there will be light at the end of the tunnel, and at least we can get a little bit of normality back into our life, what we enjoyed and what we like to do. So with this, best regards to Kuala Lumpur. Thank you very much for your time, and we will share your views widely, especially with the Women in Rail working in Germany and Europe. Thank you, Natasha.
Thank you, Volker.
Okay, bye-bye.